In every story of power and pride, there comes a moment when silence can no longer serve as peace. Humanity had endured the mockery of the stars for centuries. But on this day, inside the Grand Council of 247 worlds, one woman would decide that enough was enough. Her name was Ambassador Sarah Chen, and this was the day she walked away from the galaxy. The Galactic Council chamber shimmered like a cathedral of light. Rows of alien delegates whispered and buzzed, their varied voices merging into an oceanic hum of contempt. Some sat in oxygen-rich zones, others floated in domes of methane or liquid ammonia. The air shimmered with heat from translation fields, and in the center, amid the cacophony, sat Sarah Chen, her jaw tight, her eyes fixed forward. For 3 long years, she had endured this. 3 years of pretending that humanity's seat at the table meant equality. In truth, it was charity. And today, the illusion finally broke. The speaker's voice rang through the chamber like breaking glass. Elder Vexar, a crystalline being from the planet Crystallon, glowed faintly violet under the chamber lights. His tone chimed like wind over hollow bells. We grant mining rights in the outer sol system to the Vorgothi Corporation. They have filed proper documentation and paid all required fees. Sarah's hand shot up. Elder Vexar, the sol system is human territory. You cannot grant rights to foreign companies without consultation. Laughter rippled across the chamber. A dozen alien faces turned toward her with patronizing amusement. She'd heard that sound too many times, the laughter of beings who believed humans were still children playing empire. Elder Vexar tilted his gleaming head. Ambassador Chen, your species has been among the stars for only 4 centuries. The Council has governed for millennia. Surely you understand we are better equipped to manage such affairs. Sarah's voice stayed steady. The Kuiper Belt lies within our system. We've been mining it for 200 years. That's not your jurisdiction. More laughter, this time from the Zenturi delegate, a creature of translucent jelly. Adorable, its translator purred. The humans think 400 years of spaceflight makes them equal to civilizations that explored the galaxy before they learned to use fire. The sound tore through Sarah's patience. She had earned her place here. A degree in xenodiplomacy from Oxford, fluent in 12 alien languages, and credited with stopping 2 interstellar conflicts. Yet none of it mattered. To them, she was a curiosity, a clever ape dressed in diplomacy. She rose. I request a vote delay. Humanity deserves the right to present its case. Request denied, Vexar said, his voice ringing like a door slamming shut. This is a minor matter, Ambassador. You'll hardly notice them mining a few icy rocks. That's not the point, Sarah said sharply. You're Ambassador Chen, he interrupted. Sit down. You are disrupting proceedings. The green and red voting lights lit up one by one. Green for approval, red for dissent. Out of 247, only one glowed red. Hers. The motion passes, Vexar declared. Next on our agenda, Sarah stood again. Her movement froze the room. Ambassador Chen, Vexar said, irritation creeping into his crystalline tone. Do you have something to add? She did. And this time the words would change everything. By authorization of the Human Unification Government, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The entire chamber fell into stunned silence. The translator fields flickered. Some delegates blinked. Others hissed, clicked, or murmured in disbelief. What did you say? Vexar asked, his glow dimming. We're done, Sarah replied. She picked up her datapad and began walking toward the exit. Behind her, 3 human delegates scrambled to follow. Ambassador Chen, you cannot simply leave. We just did. The massive doors opened automatically, revealing the long corridor beyond. Sarah paused, looking back one last time at the sea of alien faces. Some mocking, some worried, most simply confused. For 3 centuries, we've followed every rule, she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. We've been patient. We've been polite. We've contributed more than you'll ever admit. And for 3 centuries, you've treated us like fools. Well, she smiled. It wasn't kind. We're done being patient. The children are having a tantrum. Someone shouted from the Zenturi seats. Sarah's gaze was cold and final. If that's what you want to believe, go ahead. Have a nice life, everyone. Humanity is going home. As the doors closed behind her, the chamber erupted in chaos. Arguments, confusion, shouts for order, all swallowed by the hum of a decision no one could undo. Minutes later, aboard a human shuttle, Sarah looked out the viewport as Concordia Prime shrank into the darkness of space. Lieutenant Davis, her young aide, looked pale. "Ma'am, are we really doing this?" "Yes," she said quietly, typing a code into her secure comm. "Protocol Omega, we're done playing their game." The reply from Earth came instantly. "Confirmed. Proceed." Sarah leaned back, exhaustion and satisfaction mingling in her chest. For years she had bitten her tongue. Now for the first time she felt free. "They think we're children," she murmured. "Let's see how they handle the galaxy without the adults in the room." Far behind her, the council chamber descended into shouting and confusion. None of them realized that by the time the laughter stopped, it would already be too late. The age of humanity's obedience had ended, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The Galactic Council chamber had not seen such chaos in centuries. Elder Vexar's crystalline body flickered as he struggled to restore order. Delegates shouted over one another in 100 alien tongues, their translators crackling under the strain. Some laughed at humanity's defiance, others demanded sanctions, and a few sat in uneasy silence, unwilling to admit that something had shifted in the room. For the first time, humanity hadn't just argued. They had walked out. "Silence!" Vexar's voice rang like breaking glass. "The humans are bluffing. They will return once they realize the consequences of isolation." But even as he spoke, reality was already proving him wrong. A week passed. The seats reserved for humanity remained empty. 4 chairs coated in a thin layer of dust. Delegates still whispered that Ambassador Chen's outburst was symbolic, that the emotional young species would soon come back. After all, humanity relied on galactic trade, on shared science, on council protection. But the days turned into silence. Elder Vexar finally asked, "Has anyone heard from the human government?" No one answered. Counselor Thrawn, a reptilian diplomat known for his calm reasoning, finally spoke. "I attempted to contact Ambassador Chen yesterday. Her personal communicator has been deactivated. I also reached out to the human embassy on my homeworld. It's empty. The staff are gone. They left a message stating all personnel have been recalled to Earth." Vexar's glow dimmed. "All of them?" "All of them," Thrawn confirmed. A murmur spread through the chamber like a chill wind. Even the Zenturi delegate, who had once mocked the humans, looked uneasy before recovering with a bubbling laugh. "So the children are hiding at home. Let them pout. They'll realize soon enough they need us more than we need them." Thrawn said nothing, but his golden eyes held worry. Days later, the first signs of trouble began. Across the galactic communication network, quantum relay stations started to fail. At first, it seemed like technical error. A few relays offline, perhaps an overload. But by the end of the week, the network was collapsing. Entire regions of the galaxy went dark. Messages that once traveled in seconds now took hours. Or days, the Council's technicians investigated. And when they pulled the maintenance records, a quiet horror spread among them. Over 70% of the relay stations, thousands of them, had been built, upgraded, or maintained by humans. The technology itself was ancient, older than most civilizations, but humanity had been the ones who kept it running. The elder species had long since forgotten how it worked. Without the humans, the lights were going out. Trade began to slow. Communication faltered. Tension spread through the stars like a silent plague, and then the second blow struck. The Vorgathi Corporation, the same company that had been granted mining rights to the Sol system, arrived at the Kuiper Belt, ready to begin operations. What they found there would change everything. As their fleet entered the outer system, alarms screamed across every ship. Navigation systems crashed. Weapons powered down. Engines died. The entire mining operation drifted helplessly through the dark. Then a calm human voice echoed through every emergency frequency. "Attention, unauthorized vessels. The Sol system is closed. You are trespassing. You will be escorted out immediately. This is your only warning." Captain Gorth of the Vorgathi flagship tried to protest. "We have legal rights granted by the Galactic Council." But before he could finish, his ship jolted violently. Through the viewport, a small human vessel appeared, sleek, silent, and impossibly advanced. It latched onto his cruiser with a magnetic tether and began towing it away. "You are being escorted out of Sol system," the same calm voice said. "Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. Have a nice day." Gorth watched in disbelief as dozens of human defense drones swarmed the fleet. Once they crossed the system's boundary, their ship system suddenly came back online. But when they tried to return, the satellites shut them down again. The mining fleet retreated, humiliated. Back on Concordia Prime, Elder Vexar slammed a crystalline hand onto the council table, the chime echoing like thunder. This is an act of aggression. Humanity has interfered with a legal operation. Thrawn's scales shimmered as he leaned forward. They defended their own territory, Elder. We authorized mining without their consent. What did you expect? The Council's authority is absolute, Vexar snapped. Not to those who have left it, Thrawn replied quietly. The chamber erupted in argument once more. Accusations and threats filled the air. Finally, the Zenturi delegate spoke above the noise. The solution is simple. We impose sanctions on humanity. Cut off all trade. Blockade their space. They'll come crawling back within a month. The vote was called. Out of 247 civilizations, 198 voted yes. Sanctions passed. Thrawn left the chamber sickened. He had watched civilizations rise and fall, but he had never seen such arrogance. The Council believed it could starve humanity into submission. He knew better. That night, in his quarters, a private message flickered onto his console. Counselor Thrawn, it read, "Thank you for being the voice of reason. For what it's worth, humanity bears no ill will toward you or those who treated us fairly. But we're done with the Council. They'll realize their mistake soon enough. Take care of yourself. Sarah Chen." Thrawn read the message twice. Then he deleted it, though the words burned in his mind. The galaxy is about to get rough. And it did. Because even as the Council debated sanctions and pride, human ships across 80 worlds were quietly vanishing, pulling back, carrying away supplies, knowledge, and power. The galaxy didn't even know it depended on. The exodus had begun. By the 30th day of humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy had begun to rot from the inside out. Trade routes faltered. Communication networks stuttered. Whole worlds blinked out of contact like dying stars. At first, the Council called it temporary disruption. They insisted everything was under control. But deep inside their gilded chamber, Elder Vexar knew that wasn't true. Every day, more reports poured in. Quantum relays failing, patrols missing, trade shipments disappearing into the void. The galaxy was unraveling thread by thread, and the one species that could fix it had gone silent. On the Zenturi homeworld, Captain Zector of the Hegemony Navy chased pirates through the crimson nebula of the Hearth Rim. 6 days ago, he hadn't seen a single pirate in a decade. Now he was chasing 4 in 1 week. Why are there so many? His first officer asked, eyes wide over the tactical display. Zector frowned as 3 more blips appeared on his radar. Because the humans aren't here anymore. It wasn't official, but everyone knew. For centuries, human ships had patrolled the void, quietly keeping trade lanes safe. They never asked for praise or payment. They simply saw danger and dealt with it. Now their patrols were gone and the vultures were circling. Even the strongest militaries were feeling the strain. Without human logistics, fleets were slower, less efficient, and far more vulnerable. The galactic peace had never been built on treaties or trust. It had been built on the quiet diligence of one species that everyone underestimated, and that species had simply walked away. In a distant lab on the planet Zilloran, Dr. Kelvara stared at an empty storage unit that once held synthetic antibiotics. The shelves were bare. Her scaled fingers trembled as she checked the database again. The formula was there, complete in theory, but each attempt to synthesize it failed. She had tried 4 times. Each batch came out inert. Kelvara was a physician of legendary skill, with 3 doctorates in xenobiology and 6,000 years of medical heritage behind her species. Yet none of that mattered now. She had to face a bitter truth. The medicine she'd used for decades wasn't truly hers. It had come from a human company called TerraMed, which had supplied the galaxy with cheap, effective drugs for generations. No one had asked how they made them. No one cared until now. She sighed and turned to her assistant. "Try ordering from TerraMed again." "I already did," the assistant replied softly. No response. Kelvara's crest flattened in despair. Outside the lab, her patients, alien children and adults alike, were waiting. Without the antibiotics, they would die from infections that had been curable for centuries. Across hundreds of worlds, the same realization was spreading. The galaxy's medicine came from humanity. And humanity had closed its doors. By day 40, the galaxy's economy collapsed like a failing star. Humanity had produced 30% of all manufactured goods in known space. Everything from starship components to food synthesizers, from medical nanites to basic clothing. Their factories were fast, efficient, and everywhere. Now they were silent. On the Zenturi homeworld, the delegate who had mocked Sarah Chen faced an angry mob outside the council embassy. Food prices had tripled. Basic goods were being hoarded. Trade ships were grounded because their navigation AI, cores built and maintained by human engineers, had stopped receiving updates. He tried to calm the crowd with speeches about council stability and unity. The mob didn't care. They were hungry, frightened, and furious. Even luxury worlds once gleaming with abundance found themselves stripped bare. The elegant cultures that had mocked humanity's primitive efficiency were now discovering what a universe without humans looked like. Chaotic, fragile, and terrifyingly quiet. Communication failures spread faster than any virus. By day 45, galactic messages traveled at only 35% efficiency. Entire colonies lost contact with their homeworlds. Civilizations that had taken instant communication for granted now waited days for messages that once took seconds. Technicians worked feverishly to repair the quantum relay network. They had the ancient blueprints, the same designs the elder races had boasted about inventing eons ago. But blueprints weren't enough. The systems had been updated, re-engineered, and modified by human hands for centuries. No one else knew how they worked anymore. Without the humans, the relays simply didn't function. Elder Vexar called meeting after meeting, his crystalline form growing dimmer each day. "We must find solutions," he urged. But every proposal ended in arguments, blame, or silence. Counselor Throne watched the debates from his seat, growing increasingly horrified. He spent long nights studying the archives, looking for answers. What he found shook him to his core. Humanity had been far more integral than anyone realized. They had repaired the infrastructure of hundreds of worlds. They had stabilized economies, enforced peace, and distributed medicine, all quietly without demanding recognition. And every time they made progress, the Council claimed it as its own. For centuries, the galaxy had thrived not because of cooperation, but because one species had chosen to keep it running in the background. Now that invisible support was gone, and the galaxy was falling apart. As the Council scrambled to contain the chaos, a new set of orders flashed across the hegemony's military networks. Captain Zector was to take his ship to the edge of human space, to assess their capabilities. But when he arrived, he would discover something far more terrifying than a simple withdrawal. He would discover what humanity had been building in the dark. By the 45th day of humanity's absence, the galaxy was a tangle of broken networks and failing systems. Pirates ruled the outer sectors. Trade collapsed. Medicine ran dry. And through it all, one name kept resurfacing across encrypted communications and panicked council meetings. Ambassador Sarah Chen, the woman who had walked out. The woman who had pressed the button marked Protocol Omega. Captain Zector of the Hegemony Navy stared out the viewport of his warship, Wrath of Honor, as it sliced through the void. His orders were clear: enter human space, assess their military readiness, and determine whether the species could be coerced back into the Council through controlled pressure. He didn't like the phrasing. Controlled pressure was political language for invasion. As his ship neared the edge of Sol's territory, his sensors began to distort. Energy readings spiked, strange fluctuating fields unlike anything in known databases. "Captain, we're entering their perimeter," said his first officer, a scarred reptilian named Gal. "We're broadcasting standard diplomatic codes." Zector nodded. "Maintain course. Let's see how they respond." Moments later, a voice came over the comm, female, calm, and human. "Hegemony vessel Wrath of Honor, you are entering restricted space. Identify your purpose." Zector replied, his tone diplomatic. "This is Captain Zector on official council business. I request permission to cross your border for peaceful observation." There was a pause. Then the voice returned. "Permission granted. Proceed to coordinates Alpha 79. An escort will meet you there. Do not deviate from the designated course." Minutes later, A small human frigate appeared out of the void, sleek, silent, radiating more power than anything Zector had ever seen. By the stars, Gal